Chris Cuomo has been suspended from CNN. Lady Gaga is catching heat from the Gucci family, who does not like her latest film. Plus, is Bradley Cooper entering the Oscar race? And Rita Moreno stands to make history.
It's all happening right now on The Take.
Hey everyone, and welcome to The Take. I'm Elizabeth Wagmeister.
And I'm Clayton Davis, and we're here to give you our take on some of the week's biggest stories. Missed you, Elizabeth. Back together again. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope it was fantastic.
Happy holidays. You are truly the busiest man in Hollywood. Of course, as our awards editor, you're always covering awards, but I feel like this was the official week to Oscars kickoff. We were both in New York and didn't even see each other, but I did see that you were everywhere with everyone.
That's right, Elizabeth, because we have two big films from two big directors, both helming two big remakes. Starting off with West Side Story from Steven Spielberg, the remake of the 1961 musical that was famous and won Best Picture, 10 Oscars in total, got its debut in New York City, where all the stars were in attendance and had a Q&A. It opened to amazing reviews from critics. And then we moved to Nightmare Alley, which also got its premiere in New York City, from director Guillermo del Toro and stars Bradley Cooper. Dark remake is an Oscar player, but may leave people a little squeamish.
So my question for you is, how do both of these films now shake up the Oscar race this late in the season?
Yeah, so West Side Story debuted on the same day that the Gotham Awards took place, which was a lot to juggle that day. But we've never seen a remake get this type of recognition that we're seeing Steven Spielberg getting. And it could be a good rehash of 1993, where Steven Spielberg won for Schindler's List against Jane Campion, who was helming the piano at the time, and she's back in the race this year with The Power of the Dog. But the big talk is Rita Moreno.
Yes.
She is the only Latina to ever win an acting Oscar, which is bananas. If she's nominated, records are shattered. She becomes the first Latina to ever be nominated a second time.
When I read that statistic in your story, I was shocked.
Yes.
That's insane.
It's gross, but if anyone can do it,
She can.
I believe in her. She's gonna be 90 years old next week.
Equally as insane.
I hope I look like that at 40. So looking at her now, if she gets nominated, she'll become the oldest nominee of any competitive Oscar in history. She'll also be the first person to get nominated for a remake of a film that she previously won an Oscar for. So this is just head to toe, like all over the board in terms of what records it breaks.
And then with Nightmare Alley, is Bradley Cooper entering the Oscar race?
Maybe, because the thing with Nightmare Alley is it's very dark and it's very gory. You see chickens' heads being, bitten off.
Wow.
You see people getting shot right in the eyeball. It's a lot to take in. But Bradley Cooper, who should have won an Oscar already for A Star Is Born opposite Lady Gaga. It'll be interesting if they're back in the race together this year for two separate projects. I think, because he has 8 nominations, he could be a challenger to Will Smith. But Will Smith won the National Board of Review, as we are recording this, for Best Actor for King Richard.
Yes.
So
some good momentum for him. And it seems
Absolutely.
like this year at the Oscars will be a year of many reunions. I'm glad that you brought up Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, because speaking of Lady Gaga, the Gucci family is not happy with her new film, House of Gucci. They came out with a scathing statement saying that the production did not reach out to the family and that the tone was off and that it's not accurate. They said in part, quote, "Gucci is a family that lives honoring the work of its ancestors, whose memory does not deserve to be disturbed to stage a spectacle that is untrue." Now, they also seem to threaten legal action, but we do have sources at Variety who say at this time there is no legal action being taken. This doesn't come as a huge surprise. Patricia Reggiano, who is the real-life person that Lady Gaga is portraying, she has spoken out against this as well. Ridley Scott has been asked about this, and he essentially said, "I'm not even entering the fray on this. It's not really worthy of me commenting because one Gucci was murdered and the other one went to jail for tax evasion."
there's revisionist history, and there's a lot of things that people don't like that they see on screen. They feel like they were portrayed differently or not. However, the case is, when you walk into House of Gucci, it opens with "inspired by true events." He does not say this is exactly what happened. It is campy and different and not something that should be taken seriously. But, the Gucci family is not painted in the best light. True story, but we know that what they did along the way was stab each other in the back. So no matter how it happened, it still happened.
Yes,
That's where I stand.
And like you said, anytime that there is a real life story that is brought to screen, and when the people are not portrayed in the best light, there's usually a scathing statement that comes out.
Yeah. Making the switch now to the world of music, where Trevor Noah was just announced as a Grammy host of this year's ceremony. This comes right after the nominations were announced last week, where Jon Batiste had led the field, but some very controversial figures were recognized, including Dave Chappelle, Louis C.K., among others. This brings about an interesting question of why are we constantly recognizing these figures that are going to drum up a lot of controversy, to say the least. Harvey Mason Jr. had spoke to this, right?
Yeah, so the head of the Recording Academy, he spoke to press in response to the backlash because, as you said, controversial figures like Louis C.K., Dave Chappelle, and Marilyn Manson, who's been accused of rape, by the way, all received nominations. Now, Harvey Mason Jr., he said that when nominating artists, we don't look at past behavior or criminal history. That may be true, and it's the age-old question of can you separate art from the artist? And it's not Marilyn Manson's fault he was nominated. It's not Dave Chappelle's fault he was nominated. The Recording Academy, the voting body, needs to take a look inward and see who they are nominating. But the response from the head of the Recording Academy is really what I had a problem with. It would have been better just not to say anything because it just seemed very cavalier to say, we don't look at past behavior.
They may not be looking at their behaviors for awards, but they're also not looking at behaviors for their next gigs because these people just keep on working, as we see all the time, and why cancel culture does not exist.
Well, thank you for the seamless transition because one of the biggest stories of the week, Chris Cuomo has been suspended indefinitely from CNN after an investigation from the New York Attorney General revealed that he was acting as an advisor to help cover up a sexual harassment scandal of his brother, the former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo. I'm glad this happened, but it should have happened a while ago. First and foremost, as a journalist, you are supposed to be unbiased. And I, as a viewer and as a journalist, found it very distracting to have Chris Cuomo on air basically saying on air that he can't cover one of the biggest stories going on because it involved his brother. Now, it's not his fault that he's related to him, but he probably should have taken a step aside to not be anchoring the show. My other issue is, why is it a suspension? What are they evaluating? Didn't the New York Attorney General come out with an investigation that showed that he was helping to cover up these allegations? And I just wonder, not just CNN, but any company, if this wasn't your star anchor who was leading your primetime lineup, if it was a junior staffer, would they get to just be put on leave and suspended? I think they'd probably be fired.
I look at it this way. He couldn't interview his brother, but he did interview his brother multiple times during the pandemic and would have these little like brotherly comedy skits, you know, for all of us to enjoy. Listen, what I want to know, the most important thing is, he's suspended, is it with or without pay? Because consequences for people vary, as we saw with Matt Lauer, when he walked off the Today Show, he walked out with a nice chunk of change in his pocket.
Remains to be seen what happens with him, but I think we all know where this may end up. But before we go, we do have to say rest in peace to one of the greats, Stephen Sondheim. We spoke about West Side Story earlier, just a few moments ago. And it seems to be this crazy timing that the film premiered just a few days after his death at the age of 91.
He's a Broadway legend. We love him. I look forward to multiple adaptations of his acclaimed musicals in film in the future. Follies is probably one of my favorite. I adore him, and it's a big loss for the industry, but he was one of the greatest.
Thanks for hanging with us, and we will see you, as always, next Friday with a brand new episode of The Take.
Thanks for watching.